Bretto, after an extremely tough 2020 for many, it is so exciting to announce our first in real life event for 2021.
Oh, MP, it's an understatement to say we miss connecting with our tribe, but it makes the 2021 Wellness Breakthrough all the more exciting.
If you're ready to rebound or to make a comeback and even make 2021 your best year yet, you are warmly invited to join Brett, myself, and an intimate group of like-minded souls at the Wellness Breakthrough from February 5 to 7.
Imagine yourself tucked away in the serene Strzelecki Ranges of Gippsland, Victoria. You don't have to cook, you don't have to clean or do anything domestic. We feed you, we accommodate you, we hold the space for you to create your own wellness breakthrough.
Whether it's in your health, your relationships, work, life, wealth, spirit, any part of your life, you can expect major transformation at our most intimate event.
We'd love for you to join us, but spaces are strictly limited to 20 attendees. And as we record this, we have less than 10 spaces left.
For more info, to watch the highlights of previous years and to join us from February 5 to 7 in 2021, go to thewellnessbreakthrough.com.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is I Want to Meet the Bridget to My Julie. So before we jump into that, we'd love to remind you to jump onto nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe, where once every so often we shoot you off an email so you are in the loop about everything that's happening and you can pick and choose where you'd love to dive deeper. So please jump in to nourish the mother inside of you a little bit more in the weeks in between podcasts. So that's nourishingthemother.com.au. I'm just moving that a smoochie closer to us, Georgie.
It's a bit exciting for us actually because this is the first time that we have podcasted together in the same room since March.
I know. I'm sitting next to you.
We're getting a little cozy, which is actually the perfect platform, I guess, for our conversation today, which is all about, because inside of motherhood there's often conversations about, how do I meet friends and community that have the same sense of connection and depth and, desire to grow.
Yeah.
And so we thought that's where we want to take the conversation today.
Well, that's where the title came from, because there's often been I just want to meet the Bridgets and my Julie, or the other way around. Yeah, depending on who you identify with more strongly.
Yeah.
So, and we really get it, because I actually really love the reminder, because what we already have, we can tend to take for granted, right? And I love that reminder. You go, oh yeah, that's right. I'm really fortunate and really lucky to have found the Bridget to my Julie. And not everybody has the experience of a friendship that's so deeply holding and intimate in so many ways that it nourishes and supports your life I want to say endlessly, but I know you don't like imperative language, Bridget. So
probably supports and challenges your life endlessly.
Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
That's probably encompasses it better.
Yeah, it's often more like a sibling relationship in a lot of ways. Yeah. So we really wanted to have that conversation because I also think there's probably not quite enough conversation around about how difficult it can actually be having friendships
and to
as grown women.
And to meet your soul sisters.
Yeah, and how that changes when you have kids. Because it changes a lot.
So much. So much. And the ways that you used to catch up with friends before you had kids is really different. And there can sometimes, depending on your level of anxiety and motherhood, can be a lot of barriers in the way of really creating the depth of friendship because of all the stuff that can get in the way, particularly as you're trying to find your feet.
Yeah.
Which is also purposeful because we've talked about in the podcast before how, you know, it was the very fact that we couldn't really connect with like mainstream motherhood circles that we found each other, really.
Yeah.
Because we sought a path that was different, that we couldn't see very obviously around us.
Yeah. I always think that's the key. It doesn't matter if you're looking for a partner or for a partner in any form, right? It doesn't even have to be a sexually or intimate partner of any description. It can just be I'm seeking someone who shares a vision and a goal and a vibe to me. And to do that, you have to hang out in the places and spaces that you already love. Bonding over hobbies that you enjoy automatically connects you and creates connection between you and another. Following the passions in life that you have and finding like-minded people who have those passions in life automatically gives you a platform of connection on which to springboard any relationship. So I do think, I mean, you and I were talking about this before we jumped on, is that you've really got to be willing to find what is deeply important to you and seek that, dare I say, outside of the intimate community that you have, perhaps even locally around you, that you're willing to say, I can love you in your differences as you are. It doesn't mean I'm rejecting my family or the people that I grew up with or any of those things. You don't have to reject in order to seek. You can actually just love it all and love the fact that you want more. I don't think that you have to hate in order to love.
No, and nor do you have to ask of those who are already in your life to be something that they're not in order to satisfy your own growth. It's to go, I see you who you are and I love you for that, but I'm also seeking this over here. Yeah. And I can hold both and move with both. But really what lights my heart up right now is to move in this direction. And I think simply by taking that courageous step of creating what you don't see around you and allowing that to lead you even when you don't know where it's quite taking you, is then what leads you to you. Right, what you're seeking is seeking you.
I don't think you ever really know where it's going to lead.
No.
Don't you think?
No.
Just like, one next step, this next one part makes sense to me. The rest of it, and maybe it doesn't even make sense. It makes sense, I mean, at a heart level. This next part feels so right. I can't not do it. So I'm just going to do this one next thing and we'll just work it out from there. There is a certain leap of faith that comes with that, isn't there?
And that is really any kind of intimate relationship, which is just that you don't know what it is, but you're seeking more intimacy. So you continue to say yes to intimacy, you know, that you're desiring to spend time with that person or to learn from that person or to create memories with that person, to whatever it is, simply be in the vicinity of that person because you know you like how you feel.
Around them you're better. And by better I mean a more amplified version of the truth of who you are, or an expansion of who you are. They expand your capacity, your ability to show up, to shine. There's an expansion that comes with someone who's truly aligned with you, your soul, your heart, your journey, as opposed to a contraction and a shrinking. So I think you've got to look for the body signs that just like they lead you and go, this way, this, you know, it's like this beautiful breath in, and you've got to stop waiting for it to totally make sense, or for you to be completely safe, or for the people around you to say, yes, you have full permission to go and seek that outside of me. It stops being meaning attaching to any of that and starts being, I'm just going to take this one next step to honor my soul and love as deeply as I can in the process of that, and show up for myself. So you and I mean, I'd love to talk about how you ended up at the natural parenting playgroup that we met at. But I ended up there because I knew my heart and soul needed like-minded, attachment, alternative style living mums that I could build a community with, that my then third child could grow up around, because her siblings were already at school. So we weren't in a community of little children anymore. And I knew that if I didn't find the women that supported my journey and what is often a very slow and lonely path of early childhood, that I would not be better. And if I really need those sorts of connections to women around me, because without that, there's part of me that shrivels up, and then I can't love as well my partner, and I can't bring as much of myself to my work or my children, because there's part of me that's just not lit up. And so I know that in the ingredients of what make me feel amazing, part of that is making sure that I always have a community of women who are fostering life in the same way I am, and that we take the time to breathe life into each other, and that is part of the cycle of I don't know what it is to be alive for me, what it is to be like really alive, as opposed to just going through the motions. So I sought that group because I knew if I didn't push myself, I didn't want to. This is my third child. I couldn't think of anything worse than going back into a play group / mother's group. Yeah. I had done that twice already. I had always set up and run, you know, like I ran the natural parenting playgroup with my first and second child, because I've always been like, nope, I don't take no for an answer. And if it's not there, I'll create it. You know, build it and they will come. And they always did. And I always had co-ops and all sorts of amazing opportunities that were birthed out of those experiences. But it's like, oh God, I don't want to do that. I just want to find some beautiful mums that light my heart on fire, and I can look forward to spending this time with them that I might have once or twice a week. And that was what brought me there, was I know this is an ingredient to my soul. I don't know who's going to be there. It's a little bit scary. What if I find no one? I don't even know what that means. What happens then?
I don't know if the awkward.
I don't know. But I'm going to go and see anyway. So, and I was willing to try several groups. So all across Melbourne, I was willing to travel an hour and a half to find my pocket of people. So I'd kind of mapped out where all of them were. And this was bus stop number 1. And I just happened to meet you there, and I'm like, yep, sold. I'm in.
I didn't know you had that plan of,
I did.
Of group shopping, depending
I was group shopping. I was like, I know I need to find my people. I just don't know where they are.
Yeah. I really get that. And I think also, and I find now, like being a mother of 3, that I'm very discerning, and, and very, very, I don't know, it's got to work very quickly or I'm out, you know.
I have not got time to invest in the foreplay anymore.
Yeah, but I wasn't aware. I mean, obviously, you know, time in mothering gives you that clarity of vision of what you want.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. What about you?
Yeah, what led me there was the complete I don't want to say disgust, but I'm going to say it. Disgust and visceral resistance that I felt in the mothers group that I was placed in. And that is not taking away from those women in there, but it was simply reflective of my very clear values at that time that were very, very different to the values represented in that group. that for me felt actually physically jarring to me. So things like sleep training an 8-week-old, not even trying to breastfeed. You can even hear me judging now.
I get it, because there's a piece of me that feels every bit of that too. There really is.
A desire to make your baby do things for you. A sense that your baby is interrupting your life, and a pain was something that I really couldn't come at, based on the kind of mothering that I wanted to value and wanted to surround myself with.
God, I remember that with my firstborn as well, just thinking like, what? You know, if you leave a hot water ball in their bed, they'll settle easier. Really? And the hours of endless rocking of the pram for a baby that seemed hysterical, and I'm like, can we not just pick it up?
Yeah.
I totally get it, and it hurt my heart. Yeah.
And just, you know, conversations about birth being horrendous, and oh yeah, I just had to have this, and oh, the doctor told me that, and no inquiry or
it's a lack of inquiry, isn't it? Because it actually doesn't matter what decision you make as long as it's a consciously held one.
Yeah, because I've got beautiful friends who've like had C-sections and like totally empowered choices, and like have moved on with it and really happy with them. But I guess particularly in birth, like it's an area where I'm like, you know, whatever you're choosing, your empowerment is key to your experience. So, yeah, early on, that was just a really clear sense for me that these were not my people. At that time in my life, when I was really seeking a different experience, and I'd read a lot online, because I mean I became a mother with no one else anywhere near me who was also a mother.
Me too. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I didn't have anyone, because I mean I live in a suburb that my husband and I really just bought in because it was close to the train and was a great commuting distance, and you know you could walk to the beach, right? So we didn't have any friends really like in that area. I had one friend who'd had a baby a year earlier, but when you're in that newborn phase, like a year is enormous. So to be going through the very early years and have no one, I had to really consciously seek out, like you did, where that community was going to be. And so it was just through like researching that I found, I knew, you know what, I think I might have even been told about them.
The natural parenting programs.
Yeah, I might have had a maternal nurse tell me about them maybe. That might have been what it was. I can't remember whether I Googled it and found it. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but whether it was the health nurse told me. And so then I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to try this out. And like straight away I was just like, oh yes, I've arrived. Because they had chosen and were choosing a lot of the practices that I had researched through my pregnancy,
baby
and
wearing, extended breastfeeding, alternative or natural lifestyles.
Yeah, just you know, conscious of their food choices, natural birth, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And so I just felt like this sense of like, oh, I've arrived.
Yeah, such a good feeling.
Yeah, and then I felt held in that. Just even without necessarily knowing these women whole lot, you know, there was just a sense of, like I see you and you see me, whereas I felt very unseen and unheard, and also I guess undervalued for what I was seeking to create or seeking to value. So that's really what brought me there.
What do you think for the woman who's struggling to find the bestie that she can have super conscious conversations with and just create a really meaningful and rich experience of what it is to be a mother and a lover and alive through this period of time? I really get it, because I mean, I think knowing you and having the conversations that we have deeply enriches my life, deeply. And by virtue of being able to have those conversations with you, I don't put pressure on anyone outside of me to have those, because it's so taken care of. And it's like, tick, don't need it from you.
And that's a really big thing. And I think for you and I, both of us, that's really helped our marriages enormously too, because we don't project onto our husbands the need to be that.
at all.
Yeah.
And then they say, Gracie, like my husband today was like, you know, I think there's this woman at work that really manifests getting injured. And I like looked at him, I went,
have you been listening to me?
Who are you? In what world have we ever, like, have I ever heard you talk about manifesting? And now you're recognizing that someone can manifest
An injury.
And it's that, right?
Yeah.
When you stop needing it and being like this, you know, cling on.
Yes.
There's a certain sense of desperation. You have to give me this thing.
Yeah.
And you just live it with grace and love for the person as they are.
Yes.
They naturally want to move towards that shine
so
in a way
true.
that they never can when you're like, give it to me, give it to me.
Or just care about this and you should and I need you to.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
They just can be.
Yeah. But that's massive, isn't it?
That's really big.
Yeah. And I think it also means that I can love the school mum friends for who they are and what they bring to my life, because I'm also I'm not coming from a place of lack, because it's so taken care of here.
Yeah, it's so true.
And in the pockets that you and I create. Like the women we come into contact with through our work and through our coaching and through soul-driven motherhood, and just those spaces exponentially increase the level of conversation and fulfillment that I experience in things that are deeply enriching and meaningful to me, which also relieves the pressure on everyone else that I love, because it's so taken care of.
It's really quite beautiful, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
So how do you find that, do you think? If you haven't yet.
If you haven't yet. Yeah. I think it is being willing to step way outside your comfort zone and get past your own excuses as to why you can't either create it or seek it out. Because you need to go where these kind of women that you want to meet gather.
Yeah.
So maybe it's some other, maybe it's an outdoor parenting playgroup, maybe it's a yoga class, maybe it's, an online course or some kind of space where that there's at least going to be some people who might be like-minded and like-minded.
Yeah.
Those reasons. And being willing to create space for your yearning and make it, give it permission too. Because whenever I've, in my adult life, really put the effort into creating deep friendships, it's come about because I have consciously created it. I've consciously, almost like an attraction in a relationship, an intimate relationship, I have sought it out, I have cultivated it, I have nurtured it, I have showed up for it, I've created invitation for it to deepen, created like pockets of connection to ensure that is nourished and watered and can thrive. And I think that that's a big piece of it too.
Well said. I actually think that's brilliantly well said, because it's true. It doesn't just happen upon you.
No.
You actually have to consciously create and seek for and become the person for whom that's a reality, right? For anything you're trying to manifest in your life that doesn't currently exist in the reality that you're living, which is as a result of the thought processes and patterns that you're currently doing. So you have to change that to change your reality, and it becomes a conscious watering, as you call it.
And also part of it is recognizing that where you say, oh, there's nobody around here like me, or I can't create that, or I can't possibly do that, recognize that that's also self-fulfilling. That if you stop with that, that's exactly where you're going to stop. To instead look for, where could those women be? How could I meet that in another woman? How could I create the opening with women that we can get to that depth? How do I go past my assumptions that they can't meet me, just like we do with our husbands? Because they're also assumptions.
And how do I show up with my own intimacy without expecting an intimacy back? Because I think you've got to be willing to be an open form of the loving light that you are in order to send out a vibration that in law of attraction, that same, moth to the flame picks up on and comes towards and brings back to you. But if you're like part closing that and shoving it down and closing it up and being like, oh, I'll put out just a weird ass frequency or just a tiny little blip blip, like an SOS.
Which is kind of, you know, your own like
intimacy.
Yeah, it's your own like closure there, because it feels it's like that fear of rejection, right? Like I think you have to be like deeply courageous in just going, I want this thing, like, you know, like not.
Yeah.
But feeling it and following the feeling of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to be your own best friend too. No different to no one can love you in the ways that you want to be loved unless you love yourself in those ways. Same thing in a friendship. Unless you also love your company, how can someone else? And unless you also love what you bring to the table. Actually, I would say to do that, write a list of all of the things that you bring to the table. This is just part of a mental equilibration for your own brain and consciousness. All of the benefits that you bring to a friend, all of the things that are amazing about you that would inform, help, change, impact, influence, sustain and nourish their life. Like if you could write a resume for the best friend, what are you going to put on there? Because what do you bring as a lover? What do you bring as a friend? Well, I just think it's so like to really affirm in your own mind, oh no, I bring a lot. This would be a beautiful experience in exchange.
Yeah, and also to call yourself to level up, because sometimes you'll be going through periods in your life where you're not actually valuing friendship a lot. You're valuing your mothering, you're valuing other things.
I do go through phases of that.
Yeah, so do I.
And then I know I've gone too far when I start going,
I've got
I miss my friend. Yeah.
It's totally a feedback. It's just a feedback to go, oh, I haven't nourished that. I haven't watered that.
FOMO.
Yeah. I want to be invited somewhere. Yes. Why am I home on this Saturday night?
Yeah.
I want to be with their friends.
Yeah.
I want to be out. Like,
same.
All that.
Same. And the second I do that, I go, oh, hang on a minute. Okay. Have we hit the point now where you're, you know, sick of the weight that you've been giving to these other areas of life and it's ready to shift a little bit and you want to spend a little bit more conscious light on friendship? Yeah, I really do. I had this conversation with my heart. I'm like, yeah, all right, let's do that. And right now I'm going to book in a lunch next week and show up for the thing that normally I'd be like, oh, I can't be bothered, you know, blah, blah, blah. Yes, that is feedback. To actually consciously nourish friendship. And so as you're doing this list, you might go, oh, I'm actually not a very good friend. Like, because I do that. Like, me too. Me too. Yeah, because you and I think, though, the beauty is that you and I both understand values. Yeah. And we understand that they're going to shift and change depending on what's most meaningful in your life and to your soul on its progression in ever-evolving layers of purpose. So by virtue of that, we know that sometimes the social area of life is going to drop off. And that's cool. Doesn't mean you or I love each other less. It's just a value shift and then it'll shift again. Yeah. Like it doesn't mean anything. Totally. And so you can then own the fact that, oh, I'm not a great friend right now without shame or guilt, just simply recognizing, well, where am I all the things that I'm not with for a friend right now? Because, you know, you might not be like suggesting catch-ups. You might not be like lavishing them for their birthdays. You might not be checking up on how their parents are or whatever the things are that you measure as a good friend. But you're doing those things somewhere else in your life. And so, yeah, to pull the friend in, you've then got to do those things in friendship to nourish friendship. And you can when you just choose to and take the steps to fulfill that. 100% true. And when I'm struggling on this, I actually just go with, right, for the next 3 weeks, I'm booking in 1 coffee friend catch up per week. And I literally sit on my phone in that moment and organize it. So that I know I can put it out of my brain, my subconscious can stop being a bit sabotagey about my loneliness and I can go, nope, I've got it covered because I've carved out time for that. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, God, it's like how you never have sex and then you have sex, you're like, God, why don't I do this more often? Why don't I do this more often? It's exactly like that with coffee. That's so good. Yes. And I have the coffee and I'm like, oh, that was so great. Why don't I do this more often? Yeah. But unless we consciously carve it out, which is part of watering it, and actually invested in the other person,
Yes,
rather than in ourselves. I don't know how to finish that sentence.
You're going to keep getting more of what you've got right now, right? Like, you're going to keep getting more of the same unless you consciously create the shift to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just a willingness to show up and really deeply love people in the moment just by being charismatic. And at the end of the day, charisma is just a learned skill. If you breathe deeper, if you focus on having the front of your body open and receiving their energy or body as you, like, I always think of it like a full force of the sun, like just a light that just wants to receive this person in front of them. Breathe deeper, be well hydrated, make eye contact and smile.
Yeah.
That is charisma.
Number one.
Right. Yeah. I was saying this to my son the other day. He had a couple of mates over. We're back on the bloody basketball run. It's gone from 0 to hero. Hang in there. I'm bringing it around. And anyway, so I had a couple of mates over, which is just beautiful. Like, I've got to say, for all of you that are not at teenage years, I also grew up as a parent hearing those stories of, oh, God, you know, wait till they're teenagers and blah, blah, blah.
I'm a little nervous.
Oh, I love it.
Because I'm finding nearly eight, a little bit annoying.
No, so 9 was my hardest year ever with my son.
Okay.
Ever. 9 was brutal for me. And then ever since then, it's just got, I mean, of course, you know, ebbs and flows and dips and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But in general, I just adore these humans. Like, they're humans I would choose to hang out with.
That sounds so lovely.
And they're fun. And especially boys. Like, I never grew up with a brother. And kind of bypass the whole boy thing. I know you did, so it's probably a bit different for you. But I just love it. I love their energy. I love their vitality. I love their vibe. I love the way they rib each other. Like, the whole thing, I just adore it.
Yeah.
Like, I just adore it. Anyway, so because we're back on the basketball run and my husband and I split ways, he coaches my daughter and I take my son. We have a babysitter. And so it's one of his friends who they've gone through primary school together, and she's the most gorgeous, divine human. Anyway, so she comes over and she's all doting on my youngest, who just adore the ground that she walks on. And I'd already, you know, said to him, you know, just make sure you introduce her to your friends, you know, let's be polite, because you forget also when they're teenagers, their brains revert to being toddlers. I forget all of the time. I forget all of the time that half their brain literally disappears.
It's just crazy.
And then
it's so easy to forget that.
As they're neural rewiring.
Because they look like fully functioning adults almost.
Right. Except he'll be like, right, I'm headed out, because he's doing this beautiful thing at the moment where he's taking his younger cousin out pokey spotting.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll be like, right, I'm out. I'm heading off. And I'm like, hang on a minute. It's like 32 degrees. Have you got a hat? Have you put sunscreen on? Have you got a bottle of water? Well, how am I going to carry that?
A backpack.
A backpack? You know, stuff like this. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's right. Toddler brain. Anyway, so I'm standing there and he's gone into total social awkwardness. So this is when I can see his social awkwardness come out, and he's trying to work out how to negotiate. Because as we just talked about charisma, there is a certain level of self-belief and self-openness that requires, right? If you've got levels of,
shrinking and like caving in,
then it's pretty hard to like take up space to do a really beautiful greeting, to make eye contact, to stand in your own energy and say with a really strong voice, hi, how are you? Like, all of that is actually really hard.
Yeah.
So it's always, for his whole life, been something that I've worked on. And usually if we have the conversation before we arrive at any event, it goes quite well. But I did not have this conversation with him before she arrived, because I've forgotten. We're out of practice. It's been a year of lockdown.
Yeah.
And it didn't go. I could see his social awkwardness. And his father and I are both standing there in the kitchen looking at him, waiting for him to introduce his friends. Now, awkward as fuck, because he's got two mates just standing in the lounge room. And Chloe, sorry, I shouldn't say, but this beautiful girl, who's just standing in the room. And I'm like, dude, what's going on right now? And he's like, what? What do you mean? And his dad's like, oh, you know exactly what we mean. He's like,
yeah.
So he goes over and slinks behind her and he's like, hi, Chloe. But she was busy talking to the girls about the Christmas tree. And so she didn't interrupt their conversation straight away. And he went to turn around and walk off. But I'm standing right behind him, so he's pretty much turned around and walked straight into me. And I've given him one of these eyebrows. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know? And he's looking at me and giving me eyebrows back like, what do you mean? And I was in there going, like, pointing out, you know, doing one of those weird, like, go away. So Chloe turns around as like him and I having like this, you know, like this bit, I'm like, you know, and he's like, what? I've tried, you know.
Yeah.
And she turns around and she goes, hi, Heath, like this. And he just like goes, hi, Chloe. So this, I was like, oh, this is so awkward. And then, so his friends, we introduced them. We made light of the awkwardness so that everyone could, like, regulate themselves through it with a bit of humour. And then I'm driving these 3 boys home. And, of course, post-game, so they're all super bonded and jovial and, you know, mid-teen boys in a pack. That's intimidating for a single girl.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, right, how are we going to integrate this well when we go home? So like toddlers, we are pulling up to our street and I turn and say to Heath, now when we get in, you need to walk in. I talk to him about presence, body, charisma, body like this, voice like this, eyes like this. Hi, Chloe, how are you? Or whatever. And his mates are ribbing him a bit because they're a bit more charismatic than he is. And he's really struggling. Everyone can see the struggle. He's like, yes, okay. And I walked in the door first and, you know, how are you going? How'd you go with the girls? You know, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, so fine. Anyway, so Heath walks in this time, and this time presence is there. This body is tall and broad and open, and he totally can feel the energy, just like holds the space and just beams at her. Hi, Chloe. And the presence was instantaneous. And I thought,
sounds amazing.
That is how you say hello. This is what brings me full circle round to this. Is that charisma really is only a set of learned skills. And if you nail charisma, the people around you and in your vicinity just want to be around that light.
Yeah. Because you're so anchored in, like, who you are.
Yeah.
There's just a presence in that.
Yeah. You want to be friends with that person. Because they're pretty sure of who they are. So there's not this sense of cling on, I need something from you, or I'm incomplete without you. It's this sense of, this feels great to be over here with me. Let's make something greater together.
I love that.
And I think that translates to friendship. So I would rather that you were post-game charismatic Heath than pre-game awkward as fuck Heath. And that you remember this story when it comes to how do I greet new people. That's my point.
I love that. And you've actually reminded me, you know, because our kids are always tapping us into ourselves at the same age. And I've been trying to figure out why Hugo is having such a hard time implementing everything I'm talking to him about this stuff. And it's because I had such a hard time as a child. Such a hard time. Like, you know, all of that, like, shrinking and, like, you know, my body kind of caving in and my voice kind of shaking and all of that. Like, it's brutal. So they're all also trying to get us to grow ourselves up or grow up those pieces of ourselves too.
It's true. It's a beautiful invitation. So we would love you to find your Bridgie to your Jules or your Jules to your Bridgie. We think it's completely possible for you to manifest your ideal partner, be it in intimacy or in an area of life that you're just seeking to have met, like friendship. But it does require conscious, loving intention, as does any of our manifestations. So if that's on your vision board for 2021, or you recognize a hole or a gap and heart yearning, then it should be on your vision board, in which case you get to create it more consciously. Who are you calling in? What will you bring to their life? What will they bring to your life? And don't just have it all on the shiny. What will your challenges be, and how will you move through them together? You actually really get to manifest with a with a degree of, dare I say, certainty, if you're very clear on who you're calling in. So, and if you do need a community to hang out with, then Soul Driven Motherhood is absolutely the place. So many women in there have created friendships and groups in their local area.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the connections you can make online, and then one day you meet in person, and it's the most glorious experience.
Seriously.
Isn't it?
Amazing.
So I don't think that can be underestimated either. So please join Soul Driven Motherhood if you're really seeking to have that space filled and to meet mums and see what it feels like to be deeply held. It's a really gorgeous experience. We also do have in January Amplify coming up. So that is where we spend a whole month workshopping you through what it's like to really consciously create your intentions and your pathway forwards for 2021. And we're all very ready to leave 2020 behind. But let's not do that in a way that's like,
yeah, thank God that's over. Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
Let's do a bit of integration.
Yes, and really sit in what has been an incredible growth process. What have I gained? And where am I taking this now? And creating that. And I'd love you to call in your Bridget or Julie if that's what deeply lights your heart and soul on fire and expands your capacity to give in all of the ways that are meaningful to you.
Because really, when you fill yourself up in these ways, you have so much more to give. Like to really find the friendships, like the mum friendships that nourish you, it feeds your family and your relationship.
It really does. Women are amazing like that, though.
Yeah, like women are like, when you gravitate towards amazing women, it's just like, it is like going to feed at a well, going to just tap into a wellspring.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
It really is. I could never wrap my head around why all of the goddess myths always had like a gathering of women and they would always go to bathe together or something. And now I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, because they're feeding off each other's energy.
Yeah.
And like they're actually,
and it amplifies.
And they're creating more.
Yeah,
like they're creating more from the.
It's exponential.
So cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. So, nourishingthemother.com.au. You can find out about Amplify and Soul Driven Motherhood and all the things on social at nourishingthemother. Oh no, it's just Nourishing the Mother. Of course, there's no .com.au.
No. We're on a roll though. So.
And Merry Christmas.
Yes.
The merriest and happiest of Christmases to you. We hope that lockdown has not impeded your ability to give or receive love. Though if it has, then we really send you out a heart's prayer in honouring what that is to traverse heartache like that.
Yeah.
So really, not that we can... It kind of feels a bit shallow when I say, really seeing you in that, but my heart just wants to reach across and say, we hear you even though we don't hear you, and we see you even though we don't see you.
And how is this very, very unique Christmas an invitation into deeper intimacy in your small family unit? I mean, I say this simply because I look back and one of my most fun Christmases ever was when we saw nobody else and it was just me, my brother, my mum and dad.
Really?
Yeah. And we just had our own little family
How come you
Christmas.
did that?
I don't know. I shall have to ask my mum.
You have to ask your mum.
I don't know what was going on that year. That's interesting. I don't know why that was. But we didn't say it. It was just us. It was no one else. And it was the most amazing thing because we got to choose our own sweet foods. Like my mum was a bit of a food Nazi. So I can still remember.
Oh, that's right. You were like, no sugar, nothing processed.
Nothing
Blah,
processed,
blah, blah.
like, yeah, full on. Had to take sultanas and dates to the movies because there's no way in hell I was ever allowed a choc top. So we got to have top deck chocolate. And I can still remember, and it was like so amazing. And I just loved it because we just had this like free reign. So, I mean, like that's like childhood, but childhood depravity aside, how can you make it magical in the way that lights things up for your child? Because it may just be as simple as that, perhaps, for you and your family.
Have a beautiful time.
Yes.
And we will see you next week.
Remember to nourish someone to rock the
hang
family.
on. How do we connect with you?
Oh, yeah, me, suburbansandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
Is julietenner.love.
And remember to nourish someone to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
Bretto, it's been a tough year for many, but as we come to Christmas, we would just like to wish all of our listeners a very happy and healthy Christmas time.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope all of you get to have the Christmas your heart desires. I hope you get to spend quality time with your family. And if that's not possible right now, I hope that you just make the absolute best out of it and have a wonderful Christmas and New Year period.
Thank you for your support of The Wellness Couch in 2020, and we can't wait to have you again as a podcast listener, attending our events and being part of our community at The Wellness Couch. Merry Christmas.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.